communities. The Ukrainian militaries don't fire civilian infrastructure and stick to IHL rules. At the same time, the aggressor state disseminates information to discredit the military forces of Ukraine, whereas Ukrainian defenders do not open return fire. The aggressors mine and blow up facilities in their territories. The joint forces maintain the control over the situation.
Regarding the current security situation in the joint forces operation area. Today, as of noon, the Russian occupation forces committed 21 ceasefire violation, 20 incidents were with the use of armament prohibited by Minsk agreements. The adversary used artillery systems of the 152 and 122 caliber, 120 millimeter and 82 millimeter mortars, anti-tank missile systems, unmanned aerial vehicles to drop the grenade launcher projectile Vok 17, grenade launchers of various systems, as well as heavy machine guns. It is worth noting that for around an hour, the adversary continued to shell the settlement of Stanitsa Luhanska, targeting civilian infrastructure. Overall, there were 140 artillery projectiles of 122 caliber dropped on the settlement of Stanitsa Luhanska. As a result of the shelling, one service member of the Armed Forces of Ukraine sustained an injury. He was wounded in action. He is currently in a stable condition. The cowardness of the actions of the occupation forces lies in the fact that they're placing their artillery systems within civilian settlements to hide behind the backs of civilians. I would like to highlight that the service members of the Armed Forces of Ukraine never open fire targeting civilian infrastructure and strictly abide by the norms of international humanitarian law. Moreover, the aggressor continues to actively spread disinformation in order to discredit the joint forces. Without any aggressive acts committed by the joint forces and by Ukrainian defenders, the Russian occupation forces continue to purposefully destroy civilian infrastructure on the temporarily occupied territories, continue to carry out sporadic shellings of settlements, and carry out other provocations to further escalate the situation. The joint forces are in control of the situation and adequately respond to any threat.
Зараз я поінформую про стан гуманітарної ситуації в районі проведення.
Now let me inform of the humanitarian situation in the joint force operation area. Since February 18th, the Russian occupation forces, using the territories not controlled by the government, continue shelling civilian infrastructure, violating yet again the Minsk Accords and the international humanitarian law rules. In the joint force operation, the Russian occupation forces carried out 10 shellings of the civilian infrastructure in Hnutove, Avdiivka, Vrubivka, Stanitsa Luhanska, Novoluhanska, Lopaskina, and Shasta. No damage to civilian infrastructure was observed. The wounds of the civilians, neither. In the 5 past days, 104 shellings were registered in Donetsk and Luhansk regions. 44 civilian homes were damaged, 2 trucks and a garage. 5 critical infrastructure facilities were damaged, 2 civilians were wounded, and
regarding the humanitarian situation in the joint forces operation area. Starting from February 17, 2022, since the beginning of this escalation of the security situation, the Russian occupation forces continue to shell civilian infrastructure from the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, once again violating both the Minsk agreements and the norms of the international humanitarian law. Since 9 a.m. in the morning until noon of February 21st, 2022, the Russian occupation forces shelled civilian infrastructure on 10 separate occasions in the settlements of Gnutova, Avdiivka, Vrubivka, Stanica Luhanska, Novoluhanska, Lopaskine, and Shastya. Fortunately, as of this morning, as a result of these shellings, there was no damage to civilian infrastructure and there were no casualties from among the civilian population. However, overall, over the course of the last 5 days, there were 104 incidents of civilian infrastructure shelling in the settlements of Donetsk and Luhansk region by Russian occupation forces. As a result, 44 civilian houses were damaged, 4 educational institutions were damaged, 2 vehicles and a garage were destroyed, 5 key infrastructure installations were damaged, 2 civilian individuals were wounded, and 3 were concussed.
На цьому ми завершимо наш брифінг. Наступний
With this, we wind up our briefing. Our next briefing will be given at 1600.
Next brief will be at 4 p.m. Thank you so much for your attention. Let us stay united for victory.